Hi everyone, the main focus of today's episode is to add a city hall to Fairview. I am about to place down a one-way road near the central square, which I've named Civic Square. I will be placing down the city hall along this one-way road, and I will get to talking about the city hall shortly. But if you're new to the channel, I release City Skylines videos every weekend, so subscribe if you want to see more just like this one. Back to the city, I am placing down the Amsterdam Palace building, which is a unique building in the vanilla game. To unlock it, you need to place 600 service buildings in one of your cities. You could also download the Unlock All plus Wonders and Landmarks mod to skip this requirement. You may have noticed in the opening shot of this video that there is a different building in this spot. Partway through the episode I swapped out the Amsterdam Palace for the City Hall building, which is much easier to unlock as it only needs you to have 3,000 public transport passengers per week. After switching these buildings, I will be placing down the Amsterdam Palace along the main road in this area. Here it could serve as a large office building. The Amsterdam Palace, or Royal Palace of Amsterdam as it is called on Wikipedia, was opened in 1655 after several years of construction. The building was initially the Town Hall of Amsterdam until 1808 when it was converted into a palace for King Louis I of Holland. A quick fact about King Louis I is that he was the brother of Napoleon Bonaparte and didn't stay in the palace for very long. In 1810 he fled to Austria after Napoleon annexed Holland into the French Empire. Today the building still remains as a royal palace. There is also a museum there which people can visit. The architectural style of the building is classicism, and Fairview is meant to be an American-style city. So you may be wondering how such a building could fit into an American city. In the 1800s, there was a lot of buildings built with neoclassical architecture, where neo means new. A notable example of neoclassical architecture in the US is the White House, which was built from 1792 to 1800. Another example of neoclassical architecture in the United States is the Capitol building, which was also completed in 1800. The features of neoclassical architecture and classicism are closely linked as they both evolved from classical architecture. The features of buildings are very orderly, and buildings are symmetrical in classical architectural styles. They also feature a lot of pillars. The original building style comes from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Back to the Amsterdam Palace building, it could have been built in Fairview during the early 1800s when other neoclassical buildings were built around America. Over its history, the building could have faced disaster as an office building. An example of this is during the fire of 1973 in Fairview. The cause of the fire was believed to be an electrical short. The fire caused extensive damage to part of the building and had to be partially rebuilt after the fire. The fire also reached the main City Hall building, which I have now replaced the Amsterdam Palace building with. When the first fire truck arrived at the scene, the firemen focused mainly on stopping the fire in the City Hall building. The fire in the City Hall building did cause a little bit of damage, but it was mainly to the exterior, and the office building bore most of the brunt of the fire. The City Hall building is based off of the Graz town centre in Austria. I'm not sure if I got the pronunciation right there. I had to do a little bit of research to find this out. Here is a screenshot of a post on Reddit comparing the building in City Skylines to its real-life counterpart. After some more research, I discovered that the building was built in the first decade of the 1800s and extended twice during the 1800s. I don't want to share the dates with you because there's a bit of confusing information and a lot of different dates on different sites online. And kind of my main source of information was a translated Wikipedia page. The Graz City Hall is also a neoclassical building, which is not surprising given the time that it was built. The building in City Skylines is a little bit different from its real-life counterpart. During the expansion of the town hall in Graz, there were 3 house owners who refused to sell their buildings to make way for the expansion. The city hall was built around these houses, as you can see here. This makes for one very interesting detail in the building, which the game developers have not incorporated. This might have been due to it being a very unique feature that would only fit into some cities. So the town hall would have been built slightly earlier than the office building. They both were probably built when the city was growing rapidly, and maybe this was in the middle of the 19th century. Around this time, railroads would have been built on the east coast of the US, where Fairview is set. Last episode, I discussed how the city's main industry was trade. Due to the location of Fairview at the junction of multiple highways, Fairview links the small towns to the west with larger towns to the north and south. With the construction of a railroad in the mid-19th century, Fairview's position as the main trade connection for the towns to the west would have been set in stone. With increased trade and a new way for people to travel to the city growth skyrocketed. The city government quickly needed a new home and established their offices in the 2 buildings. The construction of the railroad will be in some future episode. I'm not really sure how far away that will be in terms of episodes, but have a plan of where to place down a train station within the city. Back to the town hall, it is positioned to face Civic Park, which is the central park in the city, and it creates a well-defined city centre in my opinion. I have added some trees and a path in front of the building, and added a more modern-looking office building to the left of it. Further to the left is the public library, which came with the free campus patch. Between the town hall and office building to the right, I have added in some 4-story buildings. There was originally green space here, but it was sold off and developed when the city was running low on money. The money shortage was caused by a battle between developers and one of the city's mayors. Throughout most of Fairview's history, there was a 4-story building height restriction, and the tallest buildings in the city were the fire station and City Hall. This is currently the case in the city, as I haven't developed any taller buildings yet. The developers had clients from large corporations wanting to set up local offices in the city. The best way to accommodate these corporations was to build taller buildings in the heart of the city. The mayor at the time had grown up in the city and was in favour of the current 4-story height restriction. After a long court battle with the developers and some corporations, the city ended up giving in to their demands. As the local government lost the battle, they were almost broke and ended up selling this land in between the city hall and office building to developers. Part of the agreement with the sale of the land was to ensure that the developers did not build higher than the old 4-story height restriction. This was because the city hall had developed as a landmark by that time, and the local government wanted to preserve this. Back to what I'm doing on screen, I am filling in this empty space between the office building and the parking lot. The parking lot would have been added here sometime in the 20th century. Originally there would have been a street here, which would have had houses along it. During the 20th century, demand would have been created for car parking space here, and this parking lot now provides parking spaces for the City Hall, office building, public library, cinema, and a hotel, which are all in this block. This block is now a lot larger than other blocks in the city, and takes up 4 times the area of a regular block. While I've already talked about the City Hall today, the hotel needs a story to go with it. I am giving you the opportunity to create one yourself. I will be picking the most creative story for the hotel and sharing it in a coming episode. The cinema in this block is a unique building which is unlocked after you get 4,000 tourists in your city. As it's just a cinema, I don't think it really needs a special story to go with it. If you want to write a story though, you can feel free to do so. On the topic of cinemas, there is another cinema on the other side of Civic Square, which is an Art Deco building and comes from the Art Deco Content Creator Pack. I am no expert on building styles, but I think the brick cinema in this block is also Art Deco. If I'm wrong and you know of a better building style that this building would fit into, please feel free to leave a comment and correct me. Beside the public library, I have placed down a bookshop from the University City Content Creator Pack. I had a bit of space here and thought that this would be a good space to put a bookshop. It's kind of counterintuitive though, as the bookshop has the library right next to it and people could just go to the library and get books out for free rather than buying them from the bookshop. The library probably has different books than the bookshop though, and probably has some older books that have been sitting on the shelves for a few decades collecting dust. And the bookshop probably sells newer releases, cookbooks, and various other things. In this block, I have also placed down some leisure buildings around the parking lot. These buildings bring the city alive on Friday and Saturday nights. Residents of the city initially criticised the city council for permitting these buildings to be built so close to the iconic city hall. The residents were right, and the city hall has been vandalised a few times due to disorderly behaviour in the parking lot. The area now has a strong police presence in the weekends, and this has helped to stop most of the bad behaviour. Some of the residents in the area got really fed up with the loud nights, so they left. And the area has now undergone some development and features a two-story apartment building close to the library. This building mainly has young people living in it, so they don't have to go far on the weekend. There are two houses that remain. They are lived in by two elderly couples who complained about the noise, but didn't move out when the clubs were built 20-something years ago. There is also a small single-story motel on the corner, which is much cheaper than the hotel just up the road. Moving on, the other block that I worked on a few minutes ago was started in the first episode of the series. It is situated beside Civic Square, and I built a few shops facing the square in the first episode. Today I have completed this block and added another parking lot. After this episode, I might not make so many parking lots for a while. In this episode, I end up adding a few hundred parking spaces to the downtown, and I want to let the city grow a little bit before I add any more parking spaces. In that block, I also added a fenced off area behind one of the shops. This has dumpsters in it and is fenced off so that random people can't just dump their trash there. Here is a frame from earlier in today's time-lapse showing the trash area. I am using a frame from the time-lapse because at the time of making this video, I am away from home and don't want to try running the city on my laptop because it probably couldn't handle it. Between recording today's commentary and the time this video is released, I hope to have planned out the next few episodes for the series. If you have any ideas for things that I could build in the series, then please leave your ideas in a comment. So the main road from this part of the city onwards will break away from the grid pattern and curve towards its final part. This road will lead to the west of the city and connect with smaller towns in that direction. I imagine that there would be quite a few towns to the west of Fairview. In this series, I will only be building one of these towns to the west of the map. This is due mainly to the size of the map, as I want to leave plenty of space for the city to expand, while still having farmland in between. In this block that I'm working on at the moment, I added a church. This is the second church in the city. Today's church is a unique building, so does not function as a cemetery like the one in episode 4 did. It kind of makes sense though, since there is no graveyard out the back of this one. The church is on the main road and would probably have been an important part of the city in its early history. In this block I've also placed down the road maintenance depot, which is a modern looking building, and was probably a relatively new addition to the area. And beside the road maintenance depot, I have placed down a Hard Rock Cafe building. This building is by King Leno and is modelled off one in Memphis, Tennessee. I have placed down plenty of tables and chairs in front of the building to fill up the empty space. Now I'm going around the entrances to the parking lots and removing the pedestrian crossings. I have decided to leave some crossings near the City Hall because it would attract more foot traffic than other places in the city. The reason I'm covering up the pedestrian crossings in the first place is that it doesn't make sense to have them at every entrance to a parking lot. Usually you would only find crossings at intersections or in the middle of a very long road. Now I'm going to fill in this block here with some houses. I'm using the houses from the American Eclectic theme and the University City Content Creator Pack here. When I change the downtown in the future, I might also change this block a bit. Now that we've caught up with what's happening on screen, it's good timing because that's all for today's video. If you've enjoyed it, you can leave a like and share this video with your friends. If you're new here and haven't already, then subscribe to the channel for more Cities Skylines videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.